Hi, researchers. So far in this unit, you've become experts at two different animals. Will you think about someone that's an expert at something? So maybe they're an expert at horses, or maybe they're an expert at sports, or maybe there's an expert that's on dinosaurs. Well, if I'm thinking about that person that knows a lot about dinosaurs, it could be that that researcher didn't just start out by wanting to research all of dinosaurs. It could be that that researcher got really hooked and they first started learning about the T-Rex, and that got them learning a little bit more about a velociraptor. And it got them to think about dinosaurs in general. And then maybe after that, they got really interested in all the different animals that were carnivores. Do you see how like a researcher might get hooked on something and then the ideas become bigger and bigger and bigger until they're an expert at something that's a lot bigger than what you started with? So researchers, that might sound something like when we learned about frogs, and when we learned about how frogs, when they were breathing through their skin, that got me kind of thinking, what are some of the other animals that might breathe through their skin? So today, researchers, I want to teach you that really strong researchers might first think about So researchers, today what I want to teach you is that when you become an expert at a topic, nonfiction readers think about what they're learning about something really specific, like frogs or penguins, and then they think about how that relates to a bigger field, maybe the entire animal kingdom. And as researchers' focus gets bigger, we can start to think about the patterns and relationships between different texts. So let's think about what this looks like. There's a chart here that might help us to think about how we might compare the two different animals. And it could be that this animal and this animal are alike because, or blank and blank have differences too. One difference is, or both frogs and penguins. I'm first going to read us something on a topic of penguin homes, and then I'm going to read to us a second text that's going to be about frog homes. And we're going to be thinking about comparing and contrasting that subtopic. Penguin homes. Penguins live on the coasts of Antarctica, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Chile, Peru, and the Galapagos Islands. All these places are south of the equator. Penguin homes or habitats differ. Some are cool places where trees and plants grow. Others are warm, dry areas. Many penguins live in Antarctica, where the land is always covered in ice and snow. Penguins do not live in the Arctic. Penguins spend more than half their lives in the oceans around their habitats. They enjoy swimming in these oceans because the water is always cool or cold. So, can you pause the video right now? And can you just think, list across your fingers, what did we just learn about penguins' habitat? Okay, welcome back. So some of us are learning that their penguins live in a few different countries, that their habitats could be in some warm areas as well as kind of cold areas. I didn't know that. That they don't live in the Arctic, way up north, and that sometimes they have different habitats that are in the ocean. So now we're going to be learning about the habitats of frogs. And let's just think, what feels the same and what feels a little bit different? Frog and toad homes. Frogs and toads live almost everywhere in the world, except where it is very cold. That feels like a difference. Cold, definitely for penguins, but not for frogs and toads. They stay cool. They stay in cool, shady places where they are hot. They sit in the sun when they are cold. Some frogs and toads live in holes in the ground. Some live in ponds and lakes. Some live inside flowers or rotting logs. Some even live high up in the trees. So right now, can you pause the video again? And will you think to yourself, how are the penguins and the frogs the same? How are the penguin and frog homes different? And you can try to use these sentence stems. Penguin and frog homes are alike because, or frog and penguin homes are different too. One difference is. Pause the video. Okay, welcome back. So, researchers, you could have been thinking about how things were the same and different. Your responses might have been something like, frogs and penguins are similar because both live in a huge variety of places. You could also have been thinking about their differences. Frogs and penguins have differences too. Frogs live in almost every country in the world. Penguins only live in 5 countries. Or another difference between frogs and penguins is that frogs live in more kinds of homes. They live in flowers, rotten logs, or holes in the ground. On the other hand, penguins don't seem to have as many kinds of homes. And frogs and penguins are different because penguins can live in super cold places, but frogs can't. So researchers, do you see what we did today? Is we thought about a subtopic with both animals, and we started to compare and contrast them. We thought what's the same and different about that subtopic. Will you right now think in your mind, what's going to be the subtopic that you're going to research? Are you going to be thinking about their homes? Are you going to be thinking about what they eat, where they live? Are you going to be thinking about their body parts? And you might be researching your own animals, but you could also be thinking about frogs and penguins too, because we've been studying that as a class. And if you have some things that you want to add into your notes, you can definitely do that. One way that you can take notes is by using these sentence stems. And another way that you could maybe take notes, especially when there's differences, is to think about doing it as a T-chart. There's lots of different ways to take notes. So as you gather your research materials today, make sure that you have resources for both animals, that you compare and contrast those animals and you find subtopics that are going to be true for both. And then you can list all the different things that are the same and different and compare and contrast those two animals. Happy researching.